Top story is this new women's rights ruling out of Wyoming, a judge blocking a right-wing measure that tried to prevent women from using medication to terminate a pregnancy, one of the more far-reaching efforts to restrict all types of abortion there. The judge finding the ban violates women's fundamental rights to make their health care decisions as protected in the Wyoming Constitution. It is notable today that this women's rights ruling is coming out of Wyoming, known for its sweeping nature, its wide open spaces, pretty sparse population, about under 600,000 people in the whole state if you check. And of course, it's largely conservative politics. This state has voted for Republicans for president for the last 60 years and running. And it's building on a trend, though. This decision marks another victory for abortion rights advocates, the AP reports today, after voters in 7 states passed measures in support of access in the elections this month. And those elections were exactly 2 weeks ago. Does it feel like longer? Have you taken a break from politics of the news and then kind of come back after a couple weeks? Well, for all the understandable focus on the presidential race and that outcome that night 2 weeks ago, the other results are significant. 7 more states passing these women's rights and abortion access measures. The states are where this abortion issue will play out. Judges in states, the legislatures in these states, and sometimes the people's direct votes. That includes red Missouri, where voters overturned a Republican effort for a near total abortion ban. We can show you all these new state measures from this month. It includes red states that Trump won, backing women's rights, places where the measures became law here on your screen. Other states also saw majorities back abortion rights. Take Florida, which we're adding because well over 56% of people there also voted for abortion rights, even though it's a red state nowadays. Local rules required an even larger supermajority to override the state law. So even though that's a huge gap there, 57 to 42, it didn't meet the threshold. But a majority of people in Florida this month also voted for abortion rights. So since Roe fell, most pro-choice measures have passed. Most states which held these votes backed abortion rights. In fact, if you widen out to look at all the places that this was up for a vote 2 weeks ago, it was only 2 states where you really saw a higher pro-life vote than pro-choice vote. So the presidential vote, we know, moved right. But people also voted for these measures. And in some places, the new pro-choice candidates also basically won their races while pushing this issue. Take the incoming governor of Washington, Democrat Bob Ferguson, whose campaign launch ad mixed the themes of his door-to-door campaigning with women's rights advocacy.
I ran a grassroots campaign and knocked on 22,000 doors, and this is the first home I visited. Let's see if the couple I met back then is still here.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Foyer. I really appreciate that.
He's showing up for sexual and reproductive health care in Washington.
But that's just one ad, but here's how he sounded across the campaign trail.
In a post-Dobbs world, where reproductive freedom is on the line all across our country, the Supreme Court, that for the first time in its history, took away a right, took away a constitutional right. We'll be making sure we make investments as a state to make sure that all women, whether coming from out of state or within state, are able to access the full range of reproductive freedom.
So Washington voters backing Democratic candidate Ferguson, you see there, and that pro-choice policy platform. Now, in other states, as mentioned, voters backed pro-choice policies and voted against the pro-choice presidential candidate, the option that was more pro-choice, Kamala Harris. And the Harris campaign, of course, was touting abortion as an issue that they also hoped would catapult her. But take a look at this. There is a gap in many of these states. Take Arizona. Harris got 47%, lost that state. 61%, though, backed abortion rights there. Or Nevada, where she basically ran 17 points behind the abortion rights measure in that state. And Trump did win many women voters, but let's be clear. As all the numbers come in and we make sense of it, he did not convert them to agree with him on, say, pro-life judges. 40% of the women who backed Trump this month say they still want abortion to be legal. This election has sparked all kinds of big takes. And there's been vague talk about whether the abortion issue somehow failed for Democrats. But again, with this Wyoming ruling today as a kind of one more news hook to bring you back in, And with some of the attention fading from all of the presidential stuff, we have the facts. The voters overwhelmingly backed abortion rights. The laws are now going to be different because of that effort in all those states that held those votes. So that worked. The Democrats' tactic of highlighting the abortion topic to catapult Harris after her late entry to the race, that may not have worked. As one headline simply put it, abortion rights were more popular than Kamala Harris. And that's really a political question about campaigns and all the different things that go into them than it is anything about the abortion issue. And Harris still lost narrowly by under 2 points in a tough economy, which you can see historically where that fits in. Democrats can debate their ideal candidate, past or future, but there is actually little debate among the voters when you take it all in together on these issues. And if anyone thinks that Donald Trump's 2-point margin is some big mandate, well, then the 6, 8, 10-plus point margins for abortion rights in so many of these states, well, that's more than a mandate. It's a landslide. That's some of the news reverberating tonight as we make sense of all these results over time. And we're joined by Michele Norris, award-winning journalist and now MSNBC senior contributing editor. Welcome.
Hey, Ari.
Your views on this result, which, of course, some of these things take time to absorb. But you take what happened 2 weeks ago tonight, Tuesday night, as well as the ruling today and a lot of what's happening out in the states, and it would seem there's a really durable pro-choice coalition out there.
A very strong pro-choice coalition. And much like the election, it's hard to take any one take from this. There are lots of things that are going on. Donald Trump, I think, made it easier for people to believe that he was pushing this issue back to the states and was less likely to enact or support a nationwide abortion ban. I think that people approached this election, obviously, as if they were at a buffet. And instead of voting just straight down the line, they liked a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So people who voted in favor of abortion rights also voted in favor of Donald Trump. But I think you saw something important when you listened to candidate Ferguson talk about this issue. Notice that he talked about reproductive rights and reproductive freedom almost as much as he actually used the word abortion. And I think that may have a significant influence on the outcome that we saw, that people are not just voting on actual abortion issues, but they're looking at the whole spectrum of reproductive rights. And that's in part because of the stories that we saw. Women who were having bad outcomes because doctors didn't know whether they could perform certain procedures on them because of abortion bans. In some of the places, there are 4 states that have bans on abortion that begin at 6 weeks, which is very early, which creates a lot of confusion in the medical system.